I'm going through withdrawal. I haven't had any nerdrotic in over 24 hours. I have no idea what's going on with Boogie 2988. I haven't had a hit of critical drinker snark in so long. Oh, it's an addiction. I think giving up coffee might be a little easier than giving up some of the social media stuff. Anyways, if you don't know what I'm talking about, topically, just in the timeline, I essentially turned off YouTube yesterday. I decided I'm done with the news. I decided I'm done with at least paying attention to social media. I think that's an important thing, paying attention to social media. And wow, it's amazing how much more you can get done in a day. If you do not doom scroll on any social media platform, you will be able to accomplish so much more. But wow, you do realize what an addiction it is. It's like, just wanna click on the nerd-erotic. Oh, there's a video about how stupid the superhero costumes of the new CW shows are. I just want to click it. No. Oh, it is curious though. It is curious. It is an addiction. That's the whole thing you have to understand with addictions. The thing with an addiction, right, is not really about whether other people think you do something too much, how other people think about whatever it is that you're doing. The whole question is do you feel that what you're doing is destructive? And even after you've decided that what you're doing is destructive, is it still really difficult to stop doing it? That, my friends, is an addiction. Let me tell you, social media is a hell of addiction. They've come up with a modern heroin. It's like the new opium wars. It's like the digital opium wars, and people don't even seem to grasp what's going on. So anyways, don't mind me. If I start shaking, if the sweat starts coming out of my pores, it's okay. I'll get through this. I will get past this. But it's a bit difficult. And I think that's the interesting thing. Again, if you sit there and you hear people talking about social media, these other things being an addiction, and you're like, oh, that's so stupid. One of the things just to ask yourself is, how easy would it be for you to quit? If you're not addicted, can you just get off of it for a week or two? I'm just saying. Something to be thinking about. Anywho, how y'all doing today? So this is the Silicon Dojo question and answer show. So this is where you folks ask me questions in the comment section down below. Every day I do a video and I try to answer those questions. So the question that comes today is from Ian Graham. As a small business, at what point do you decide it's time to outsource administrative tasks like taxes, accounting, HR, legal, etc.? How much of your time is doing these tasks worth versus focusing on the core business? Basically, the TLDR, or in the YouTube world, the TLDW, is, I would argue, you outsource those types of tasks essentially at the point your business has any value whatsoever. Now, it's important to understand when you're going to be an entrepreneur, when you're going to be a startup founder, one of the ways that startup founders and entrepreneurs quote unquote fail is they get really far into the weeds of the business world way too quickly, and then they basically they succumb to the weeds and they're not able to get any further. What I mean by this is, as I've talked about before, is that business kind of sucks. Here's the definition of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody who is unemployable. Right? Basically, the reason that we are entrepreneurs, it's not because we want to be entrepreneurs. It's more like nobody else will have us. Right? But anyways, the business of being an entrepreneur, realistically, a lot of it really, really, really does suck. Like, again, I talk about the things with dealing with trash. Like, I still haven't figured out what the hell to do with this box. So somebody sent us a refrigerator, that was kind of nice, I guess. But now I have this box, and I don't have a normal trash service in this building. So I have to figure out what to do with the box. Basically what I'm doing is I'm slicing it up a little bit at a time, and I'm putting it in the trash can in the bathroom, and then like every day they take it out. Yeah, that's being an entrepreneur for you. Right. There's a lot of just stuff with you being an entrepreneur. It's just a complete pain in the ass. And one of the issues that I see with a lot of new entrepreneurs is they start focusing on what I think are the fun things. Again, business cards and trying to find like accountants and trying to find all of these services and all these people to help them. Like, I need my lawyer, I need my accountant, I need this, I need that, I need the other thing. And why a lot of entrepreneurs do this is it allows them to focus on anything other than the actual work being done. Like, hopefully, I think, I'm in this weird convoluted process right now in order to rent our next space. So hopefully soon, hopefully in August, Silicon Dojo is going to be about 3 times the size that it currently is, in a really nice space kind of over that way. But, I'm going through so much tedious crap to get that done. I don't know, getting the lease signed is a bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be, and then even after the lease is signed, then I have to paint the place, and then I have to put down carpet in the place, and there's a whole bunch of rigmarole. But anyways, one of the issues that you run into is that entrepreneurs, they don't really want to focus on the things that are actually going to make their businesses successful. They want to focus on the fun things, like talking to lawyers they think is fun for some reason, finding accountants is fun for some reason, getting business cards and, advertising, and basically doing all of this crap that doesn't actually bring anything to the bottom line. And so one of the big problems you have for a lot of folks is they have a finite amount of resources, they have a finite amount of money, they have a finite amount of money, they have a finite amount of money, and they have a finite amount of time. Those are your only 2 real resources as an entrepreneur. And the problem is they burn through all of that before they've shipped a single widget. Right? Before they have figured out if anybody actually wants to buy their product, before they figured out how much anybody's willing to pay for their product, before they figured out how much it will cost in order to deliver the product, right? They're out there spending all this money on all of this cool stuff. Again, on things like office space, on accountants, on attorneys, on this, on that. Oh, Eli, I refuse to start a business in any way other than being absolutely perfect. And the problem is then they run out of time, and then they run out of the money, and then they quote unquote fail because they weren't able to be successful. So one of the things that I argue is that you need to start throwing crap against the wall, and don't be so worried about being quote unquote real. Be worried about trying to ship product. Again, as I've talked about that with Silicon Dojo, right? Silicon Dojo, Susan W. punished me for the 3rd time within 5 months for not breaking the rules, and I realized, oh crap, I needed to have a real exit strategy from Silicon Dojo, and that's why I rented this space and basically spun this up with as little money as possible. The interesting thing though is I did that, right? I have a space that's way too small. This place turns into a hot box if you get more than 4 or 5 people in it at any one time. There's a whole bunch of issues such I don't have normal trash service here. But right, I was able to get that. I was able to get this quickly. I was able to get everything up and running very quickly, and then I was able to actually do work and see what people would want. And as I've said, at this point we are in the black. So we are a number of months in the black at this point. I have people coming to the meetups. I have people coming to do the one-on-one sessions, and I feel pretty comfortable with going to a little bit of a larger space in order to actually make Silicon Dojo work. Again, I really feel it's important to go out there and really try to make your idea at least a little bit successful before you continue on. Because one of the big problems you run into in life is sometimes, if you don't have people requesting a product or service, if they're not actually willing to put money on the table, it's really easy to invest in the wrong things. And then spend a lot of money on something you don't end up needing. I know this from a number of years ago when I used to do the Skype one-on-one consultations. I talked with actually a number of entrepreneurs who had bought these, I don't know, there was some kind of smartphone like reglazing system, basically to put glass onto smartphones, which on its own wasn't a bad deal. But the thing was, they were like $7,000 piece of equipment. And I talked with many, many entrepreneurs that had dropped $7,000 on one of these things and then got in 3 customers. Yep, they got $150 back for putting $7,000 on a piece of equipment. And so one of the big things that I say is you need to go out there, you need to see what people actually want, or what they're willing to go for. And then once you start understanding those types of things, then you can start being real. Then you can start normally getting office space, and then you can start getting your business cards, and then you can start getting your contracts and the whole nine yards. And so what I would really argue is when you need to start solidifying your business is at the point the amount of money coming in from your business is significant, I would say, to a normal person. I actually do know very wealthy people out there that might make a few $100,000 a year and still think it's not significant. Okay, I'm not talking about those kind of people. I'm talking about basically for most people, when you actually start bringing in enough money that it makes a difference to your bottom line. Because again, it's an important thing, right? It's one thing when you have a wife or you have a significant other or whatever, and you're doing your little entrepreneurship thing, and you bring in enough money to pay for a nice meal once or twice a week. A nice meal can run you $100, $200, right? So you go out, you splurge, you're buying a couple of nice meals, you're buying some theater tickets or something like that. I would argue at that point you're probably not big enough to really worry about making it real. What I would argue is when the money is significant. When you start thinking about at least $500 to $1,000 a month, that starts becoming real money. That starts becoming the kind of money that the IRS would actually care about if you don't report to them. And basically somewhere around that point, that's when you should get serious. And when you start to get serious, that is when basically as soon as you're going to start paying taxes on the money that's coming in, that's when you need to get an accountant. Accounting in the modern world is asininely stupid. Again, in a free country, look, I like the United States. Let me be clear, I'm an American, I'm a proud American, and as such, we have some screwed up systems. One of our biggest problems is our whole tax system, where basically it is so complicated simply to pay the government what the hell we owe the government, right? Just understanding what you should pay the government and for what can be an utter pain in the butt. So again, if you're making real money, spending that $100 to $200 per hour for an accountant just to go through and do the taxes for you actually makes a hell of a lot of sense, because that way you're not going to do anything stupid or wrong within your particular jurisdiction. You're not going to write off things you're not allowed to write off, or you're not going to underwrite off things that you should be writing off. The whole nine yards. There's a lot of stuff that goes with our tax system. You should just get an accountant on as soon as you're at the point that you're going to be paying taxes. Again, that goes for accounting. One of the things to be thinking about, I would argue, when you start hiring employees, I would outsource to ADP. That's who I used to use and who I'll probably use again. All of the process of basically dealing with employees. So it's important to understand, again, from when you're not really real to real. So when you just got contractors, you're handing them some cash. Like, hey, Bob, you run some cable from point A to point B, I'll pay you $200. At that point, I'm not gonna hire ADP. Again, when we talk about real numbers, in the U.S., last time I saw, you have to do, the 1099s. You have to do a 1099 form for anybody who you give over $600, or you pay over $600 a year as an independent contractor, right? So again, when you're out there and you're brand new and you're less than $600, or horseshoes and hand grenades around the $600, I really wouldn't be worried too much about the legalese, right? Because the numbers, all of that is just small. The issue then becomes is once you start getting to the point of actually having employees, again, there's a lot of regulatory compliance that goes around employees. One of the things I absolutely find hilarious, especially in the modern time period with a lot of the current politics going on, is that nobody seems to grasp how much regulatory compliance issues there already are. Again, when you hire an employee, you have to make sure the federal taxes are paid. You have to make sure the state taxes are paid. You have to make sure, I think all states, don't quote me on that, but all states require you to pay something called workman's compensation. Workman's compensation is basically insurance. So if somebody gets hurt on the job, you have your Medicare and all your other taxes and all that kind of stuff that has to be paid. And then with all of that, all of it has to be submitted at the right period of time. And so with my accountant, so I had a good accountant years ago, and basically QuickBooks payroll services were brand new at the time, and she told me, don't pay ADP. ADP is like $50 per pay period plus whatever per paycheck. Instead of paying that fee, just use QuickBooks payroll. She would be able to do some of the taxes and things on the back end, and I could write the checks. The problem is I became very busy. I missed one of my deadlines for sending the IRS the tax money for my couple of employees. And I got hit with a brutal fine. It was like a $400 fine. Literally, it wasn't that I didn't pay. I just simply sent their taxes like a week late or something like that, because I'm busy as an entrepreneur, and it was like a $400 fine just for that. And that was the point that I realized, you know what, I'm just going to pay ADP. That's going to make my life a hell of a lot easier. So once you get to the point of having employees, I would argue ADP or something like that. The nice part now too, again, in the 2020s, is that ADP offers a lot of services that they did not previously offer. Again, they offer the normal payroll services. They offer workman's compensation. Just buy workman's compensation from them unless there's a reason that you shouldn't. They offer human resources services now. They offer just a tremendous amount of services as far as dealing with employees goes. And so I would argue, basically, as you grow, essentially just start buying more and more services from them. Again, and that's one of the things you have to think about, is where you are with your company. Do you really want to be buying HR services from ADP or anybody else when you have 2 employees? Right? When you bring on Bob and you bring on Tyrone, and they're both working 25 hours a week, and you're paying all the taxes and everything like that, do you really want to be paying for human resources from ADP to deal with sexual harassment claims and that kind of stuff? Again, not that you shouldn't in the future, but one of the things you have to think about is just realistically, where is your business at? And so I would argue, like with human resources, you start thinking about things like human resources. I would argue, once your company gets big enough, you can't track what's going on with all of your employees. So maybe 10 employees, somewhere between 10 to 15 employees, especially whether or not you have field employees or anything else. At the point that you start losing touch with your employees and you don't really necessarily what's going on with all the employees most of the time, I would think that would be the time to bring on the HR person, or again, at least the HR service. And what the HR service will do is they'll give you the stupid HR handbook. They'll give you the handbook that nobody reads. Hey, sometimes you pay for crap that nobody reads. They'll give you the HR handbook. Then if there are any issues, there's a sexual harassment complaint or there's some other kind of complaint, basically they just act as your HR outsourcing thing. And so the employees can contact directly with the HR. They go through the little investigative process or whatever else. And I think that would be a good way to go. Then past that, when you start thinking about things like legal. So legal is required, like if you're going to be dealing with contracts. Again, contracts really become important when the size of the job becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. All right, if you're doing a $500 project and the person walks away, who cares? I mean, right? Again, remember, a lawyer costs you $350 an hour. At minimum, a lawyer costs you $350 an hour. The reality is if you're doing a project for somebody for, let's say, $500, and they just, walk away. For a lot of business people, it probably doesn't matter enough to actually try to go after them, especially if it's a one-off thing. Now, if you start to have major issues, again, if you're in an urban area or if you're in an environment where people are trying to take advantage of you for your services, it's happening enough, then it might be worth getting a lawyer. But for the most part, again, anything less than $1,000, I know I'm not supposed to say it. Oh well. Again, just getting the lawyer up to speed on what's occurring will cost more than $1,000, and then they're going to sue somebody that probably doesn't have $1,000 to give you, and it all goes to hell. This is a real story. I had a buddy of mine who he got screwed over by a contractor up in Baltimore City, and took the person to court, spent $20,000 in legal fees. The judge sided with him and basically came down with like a $40,000 judgment against the company, and the company went bankrupt. Welcome to the real world of business, right? So anyways, basically what I would say is with the contracts, what the contracts are for is once you get to a certain level of business, you're starting to do projects that are in the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. The valuable thing with having the contract is your lawyer will write out the contract in such a way to protect you. And what I mean by this, like when I used to have my contracts, when I paid my lawyer to create them, the interesting thing was basically what the payment plan was, right? So the payment plan and then the requirements, the terms. And so what would happen is when I got a new client for a surveillance system or something like that, it would be a 50% down payment. So if it's a $10,000 job, it's $5,000. And essentially what that $5,000 does is it guarantees the hardware. So the $5,000 of the deposit, that 50% deposit, that's for buying all the equipment and lining everything up. The reason that my lawyer set all this up and actually put it into the terms is because sometimes contracts go sideways, sometimes projects go sideways. And one of the things you want to be able to do is you want to be able to wash your hands of a contract as soon as possible. When it starts going sideways, you don't want to go through the court system. You don't want to go through the legalese. You want to wash your hands of it as quickly as possible. And so literally within the terms of my contract is basically at any point, I could just drop all the hardware on my client's doorstep and walk the hell away. Well, you gave me 50%. That paid for all of these video cameras, DVR, cable, and everything else. It's delivered. You're an a-hole. I'm not going to deal with you anymore. And you could walk away, right? And so basically that's how it was set up. So 50% comes. I get the hardware. Then when I go to actually do the work, it would be an additional 25%. So that's the upfront cost for the labor, so I can actually pay for people. And then the final 25% is the final thing when everybody gives a check off. So the nice part there, if somebody gives me the 50% deposit and then they can't come up with the rest, well then I can just dump all the hardware on their doorstep and walk the hell away. And so this is one of the reasons why you would want to get a lawyer is basically when your project and such start to become so complicated and so valuable that you really need to make sure that you create a good legal process around how you're going to be doing these projects. That can be the useful thing for having a lawyer. But again, the lawyer is going to cost you a lot of money. $350 an hour, they write contracts and they're brutal. I mean, the cheapest contract, I had a service agreement that I got created that cost me $1,000. Literally, one of my contracts back in the day cost $4,000. Oh God, it was expensive. And so again, that's what you got to think about. Again, $350 an hour for a lawyer. You figure they're going to spend 10 hours on whatever the hell you ask them to do. Is it valuable enough to get that kind of protection? That's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. Then the whole question comes from going from doing business. So as a personal proprietor or whatever, or doing business as to when will you actually become a corporation? One of the big questions there is the whole liability concern. So in the United States, corporations are people too. Corporate lives. Anyways, not supposed to get try and be family friendly. It's so hard not to be snarky in some of these videos. Anyways. Corporations are considered actual people in the United States, no matter how ridiculous that may sound. Why that's important is because the members of the corporation, basically the people that own the equity in the corporation, can be shielded from legal consequences if the corporation does something asininely stupid, right? So imagine you have an employee that goes out and totally screws something up, burns a frickin' building to the ground, right? Which can happen in the computer world, right? You miswire something in the wrong way, and yeah, really bad stuff can happen. Well, if you're a sole proprietor, you're just doing a business as type company. The issue is that if your employee burns somebody's building to the ground, those people can then come after you. You and the company are one thing, right? The people that have been injured need somebody to sue. You are then going to be the person that they're going to sue, and they're just going to try to sue you for everything that you're worth. They're going to sue you for all the insurance money you got, plus every other dime they can get out of you. Again, if you have things like sexual harassment issues, again, one of the things to be thinking about. Again, one of the hard parts about business is there's a lot of nasty practicalities in the real world, right? There, you can sympathize, you can horribly sympathize with somebody and still not want to lose your life savings for it, right? You know, what happens if one of your employees rapes another one of your employees on company time, right? Again, the person that something happened to, they can go after the company, and the company is you, and you can sympathize with them, and you can say the other person needs to go to jail for 800 years or whatever. But basically, it's seen that the company fell down on its duty for protection or whatever else, and so that's where you come to an LLC. So basically with an LLC, that LLC becomes the person, and that person is what then gets sued. The good part about that, as far as the members of the corporation are concerned, is that the people can essentially only sue the corporation unless there's gross negligence or there's something called breaking the veil. There's a couple of ways to get around this, but in general, the LLC protects the members from being sued for whether somebody burns down a building or a person gets raped or whatever the hell else, right? And so basically then the corporation has insurance. The corporation, right? The corporation will have money, within its bank accounts. And so if somebody comes after the corporation, only whatever the corporation has or whatever the insurance the corporation has, only that can be gone after. They can't then go after a member's house. They can't go after a member's savings account. They can't go after a member's stocks because the corporation is what failed, not the members. And it's one of those things you have to be thinking about in the world of business. And so one of the questions you have to ask yourself if you're going to become an LLC, because if you're going to become an LLC, it costs money to file as an LLC. There's different insurance things. There's different regulations if you become an LLC. So again, one of the questions that you have to ask yourself is, will having an LLC actually protect you, right? If you are the jackass that's going out there and installing everything and you miswire something, they're probably still going to be able to sue you because you are the one that burned down their building. Right, the protections there are a little on the gray area, right? Again, if you're doing relatively small projects, even if you hire a contractor or whatever else, they're small, they're inconsequential. Is there anything that's really going to happen here that's going to be valuable enough that you would want the shield of an LLC? And I think for a lot of people, probably not. Again, if you're doing basic websites, why do you need the shield of an LLC? If you're doing basic computer repair, again, like a lot of this stuff, like I didn't have an LLC for years, basically until I got employees. Again, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I was scared crapless of my employees. Number one danger to all small businesses, employees. Anyways, I was doing fine until I got employees. Then I got an LLC, and then I got a crap ton of insurance. I didn't trust any of those people. And so that's what you got to be thinking about too. Again, once you get to the point of being real, of okay, I'm going to have employees. These employees are now going to be working on behalf of me. The employees could do damage to one of my customers. The employees could do something asininely stupid. And at that point, you want to create a wall to protect you from the asininity that might occur because of whatever the corporation is doing. Again, this is one of the frustrating things I get to again with the modern world. Whenever anybody looks up and they scream about corporations, is do realize it's people in the corporations making those decisions. And a lot of times the people that are making the decisions, they're not the decisions that the higher ups necessarily would want made. It's just, how things go. And so that would be the thing is once you get to that level, when you start becoming concerned that the work that your company is doing might actually cause some significant damage that would be well outside of your control, that would be the time to create an LLC, and that would be the time to go off and get a lawyer so you can have the contracts and the whole 9 yards. So I don't know. I think that's a roundabout way of saying, basically when you should start thinking about, professionalizing what you're doing as an entrepreneur. I would argue in the beginning, just go out there and do it. So many entrepreneurs fail. They don't fail. They just never really start. But they get so focused. They get so focused on doing it perfectly. It had to be done perfectly. And they get so focused on that, they don't figure out if anybody actually wants their product or service, right? And then they burn through the money. Again, $350 an hour for a lawyer, especially when you don't really understand what you're paying the lawyer for, right? Is because that's the thing, right? You're not shipping any product, you're not offering any services, you're not actually dealing with your customers, you're not seeing the problems that might occur, and so you just go to a lawyer, you just say, hey, can you write me a contract? They're like, sure, I will charge you $350 an hour to write a contract. And then you are going to get a contract. Do not think that I'm saying that the lawyer will not give you a contract. They will give you a contract. That will cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Whether or not that contract is actually useful for what you're trying to do, that's a whole different story, right? And so again, and that's the thing to think about too, like with lawyers and contracts, is again, what exact services are you doing? A contract for projects is different than a service agreement contract, versus a maintenance agreement contract, versus simple things like warranties and all that kind of thing. Like all of that kind of stuff is once you're actually out there dealing with people and you start to see the problems that you are actually running into, then you can go to somebody like a lawyer and figure things out. So yes. So basically, as far as it goes, you worry about these things as you get to the point where they're significant. Get an accountant. You just need an accountant. Just get an accountant. Just do that. Again, when you get employees, because that's the thing is when you have contractors, basically you just write them a check and do a 1099. So the accountant will do your 1099s too. So for contractors, and once you're making enough money to actually worry about taxes, all you need is an accountant. Once you actually get employees, get ADP or something like ADP. What you want with ADP is you want their payroll services, plus you want their things like workman's compensation, plus what you want is, again, it's a whole platform thing. As you grow, you want to be able to outsource as much crap as possible to ADP. It'll save you a lot of money at the end of the day. So as you get employees, you do that. Again, when you go from being just a sole proprietor to an LLC, it really becomes at that point when you're worried about liability. So again, if you're doing a couple $100s of work a week and you're doing simple things like computer repair, you're probably not that worried about liability. So it may not matter to you. Once you have employees, once you start dealing with tens of thousands of dollar projects, once you start drilling holes into buildings and the whole 9 yards, that's when you probably want to have an LLC so that you're protected. And then again, as far as lawyers are concerned, you bring the lawyers in when you actually know what the hell you want to be protected from. The final part of the question is how much of your time is doing these tasks worth versus focusing on the core business. What I would argue with that is it's not even really worth focusing your time on these tasks. Again, professionals are professionals for a reason. There are reasons that accountants exist. Now, the reason the accountants exist is because our politicians don't like us, basically. Let me be clear. There is no reason accountants should exist. Let me just be clear. Like, if you want to talk about a job that should be automated, it's accounting. Again, whether you want to talk about the blockchain or any other kind of accounting system, think about it. All accounting is basically logging inputs and outputs and categorizing those inputs and outputs. That should be really, 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 really simple. I should just be able to plug my crap into QuickBooks, and then I should just say, how much do I owe Uncle Sam? How much do I owe North Carolina? And then I should get those numbers, and then I should just write those checks. That's how easy it should be. That's not how easy it really is. So therefore, yes, it should be that simple, but it's not. It's idiotically complicated. So the little bit that you're going to be paid for an accountant, it will be well worth it. Do not go to H&R Block. Actually go out there and get an accountant. Again, the same thing is true with things like employees, with payroll and all that kind of stuff. Is there are specific taxes you have to pay for payroll. You have to pay for the federal government, and you have to pay to the local governments or to the state governments. There's specific timelines for when things actually have to get paid. Beyond that, again, you have to have things like workman's compensation, insurance. Plus, there's other stuff that you may actually want to offer your employees, and it just becomes a mess. Again, should you just be able to plug it into an algorithm and it should be able to just spit out what you need to do? Yes, it should be that simple. But again, it's the United States. So of course it's not. So that's complicated too. And again, as far as lawyers are concerned, remember when you look at contracts are a real thing. One of the things that I find really weird is people sign the dotted line on contracts all the time without reading those contracts. Contracts are legally binding pieces of paper, right? These are agreements that you have legally gotten yourself entangled with. And if it's a bad contract, it can completely and utterly screw you. So the thought of writing my own contract, I just can't imagine that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like if I had a buddy that was already doing work in a certain area that I wanted to copy. So let's say I want to be like Lewis, right? Let's say I just want to do like Mac repair down here in Asheville for some reason. I really hated myself and I wanted to, huff solder fumes all day. Like if I went to Lewis and said, hey, can I have one of the contracts that you had created, and then take that contract and then modify it slightly for the work that I'm doing here. That horseshoes and hand grenades, that's probably good enough. But again, if you need contracts essentially written, from the bottom up, you need them created out of whole cloth. Just there's all kinds of stuff that needs to go into a contract, and if you miss any of it, you can be totally screwed. Again, like how can the client terminate the contract? How can how can you terminate the contract? What are the payment schemes? When are payments due? What happens if there's a failure? There's so much. Again, like with my old projects, I don't know, it wasn't that long. I don't know, 5 or 6 pages. It's like a 5 or 6 page contract, but it was 5 or 6 pages. You read through it, and it stipulated every darn thing that would happen and what one side could do or the other. And so you don't want to half-ass creating a contract and then basically install all the product into a customer site and then have them say, oh, there's no due date on when I have to pay you for this contract, so I'll pay you later. Oh, what do you mean you'll pay me later? Well, I don't know. There's no when payment is due on this thing, so I think I'm just going to pay you, whenever I decide to pay you. May or may not be before I die. Right, that's the kind of stuff you can get into some bad stuff. So just hire the lawyer. So it's not really like there's a lot of this idea like, oh, is it worth your time versus hiring other people? It's more like, again, this is a profession. Is it worth a lawyer's time to do a PC tune-up? Is it worth an accountant's time to try to figure out how to solder a motherboard? Again, those people can probably do the work if they really wanted to, but it's just kind of idiotic and stupid. That's the same thing I would argue with trying to do these professional services yourselves. These systems are just stupid at this point. And again, I'm not proud to be an American. And I can admit some of this crap is really stupid at the same time, right? So just hire somebody. I hope that helps. But go out there. Just go out there and see what the hell happens. Again, there's all kinds of taxes and there's all kinds of regulations. There's all kinds of this and that you have to deal with. But it's one of those things that until you actually go out there and see what people want, you may not actually have to jump through those particular hoops. Again, in certain areas, services are not taxed for sales tax, and products are taxed for sales tax. So you may go to certain areas, and for your clients may not be willing to pay a markup price, right? They may be on Amazon. They know how much a Cisco AeroNet, wireless access point or whatever costs on Amazon, and so frankly, it's not even worth it for you to try to do markup on parts because they're going to have a hissy fit. At that point, you may just tell your customers, you buy the hardware from wherever the hell you want to buy the hardware. I will install it. When I install it, I will give you a bill. There's no sales tax on service, and therefore you don't have to worry about getting a little sales tax ID, a reseller certificate. On the other hand, in your area, reselling hardware may be a very valuable thing, and so you realize you do want a reseller certificate, and so you get one, and then you have to pay the taxes and all that kind of stuff. Again, it's like one of those things to be thinking about, like with Silicon Dojo. So when I was originally thinking about Silicon Dojo, when I moved to Asheville, and I was originally plotting everything out, I really thought I was going to get a retail space. So there's a lot of retail space around here, a lot of retail or light industrial space around here. The price is actually very good, and so I was looking at retail space. Well, if you get a retail space, There's special permits you have to get for the retail space. Not only that, of course, if you want to put up a sign, so if you just want to put a sign up on the retail space that you're renting, you have to pay fees to put a sign up. There's all there's all this rigmarole. Well, again, I just jumped in. I got this little office space. One of the things that I realized once I got this office space is I actually would prefer an office environment. Having an office environment improves things like security. It's actually less expensive. You get more benefits. There's a lot of value of having an office environment rather a retail space, and so now I'm renting a bigger office. Right? And so therefore I don't have to worry about regulations as far as signage and all that crap is concerned, because in the building that I'm going into, I don't get signage. Right? These are all the things that you learn as you're going along. Again, when you start hiring people, we hire them as contractors. Hire a contract web developer, hire a contract, Mac repair person or whatever. Somebody comes to you, they say, hey, I need help on this. You hire a contractor here or there. What you're going to find out is in your area, some services are going to be really in demand and other services aren't, right? You're going to have one person that needs their Mac repaired, and so you contract that out. You don't make very much money, but you contract that out to get it repaired, and you keep that customer. Then you have somebody that comes in for web design, and so you contract that out because you can't do web design. And then you get another person for web design, and another person for web design, another person for web design, another person for web design. You have not gotten another person for Mac repair. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, well, look, I have 10 invoices for web design. I have one invoice for Mac repair. Tell you what, since I'm contracting the work out, a lot of my profit is going to pay for a contractor, because a real contractor runs their own business. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring the web design person in-house, and then I'm going to keep contracting out the Mac repair, because I really don't care. Like, it's more valuable for me to keep a customer than it is to lose the customer. And again, there's not enough money here to actually bring in somebody to do Mac repair. And so that's the thing, as the business grows, you start to see what people actually want and what people don't actually care about, and then you can figure out the regulations and the legal stuff and all of that kind of thing. So that would be my thought with it. Don't screw around with accounting. Don't screw around with accounting or payroll. Death and taxes. Death and taxes. They both get you in the nastiest way possible. So anyways, I hope that made a little bit of sense. I hope that made sense. If you have a question you want me to answer, go down to the comment section and ask a question down there. Again, I'll answer questions about business or technology or anything else. Again, this is all stuff that I've been doing for quite a shocking amount of time at this point, so I can at least give you my opinion on what's happening. If you would like to support Silicon Dojo, again, Silicon Dojo is free to the end user, hands-on technology education, and we'll be doing the hands-on technology education. Again, once we move over there, again, it's almost 3 times the space as this. We're going to have the lab environment, plus we're going to be able to do seminars, we're going to have open stuff. And again, in order to be free to the end user, free to the end user is not free, as they say. Somebody's got to pay for it. So if we could do the whole crowdfunding, or if you want to buy sponsorship spots, look at that, I got sponsorship spots. You can get an 8.5 by 11? You get an 8.5 by 11 thing for $100 a month. Plus you'll get a link in the doobly-doo. You can get a 6 by 8 spot for only $50 a month, again with a link in the doobly-doo. And then we're going to have bigger ad spots probably once we move. So anyways, if you want to help fund us, think about some buying some ads, or just throwing some money into donorbox.org. So there's a little link down there, donorbox.org/ETCG. Beyond that, if you want to do a one-on-one meeting with me, if you're here in Asheville, North Carolina, just go to silicondojo.com. On the right-hand side, there's a link for one-on-one meetings. Click on that, sign up for that, and we can do that. And then if you want to come to the meetups, so I do meetups. Basically, at the meetups, we do classes here in Asheville, North Carolina. We done classes on Raspberry Pi and Arduino and IoT and machine vision and DNS for cybersecurity and Twilio. We did Twilio last week. This week we're doing how to become a technology professional, and then next week we're probably going to go back to Azure Cognitive Services and deal with speech. That's so cool. That's so cool. You can turn your Raspberry Pi into a bug. It's awesome. Like a bug that is auto-transcribing what you say. It's fabulous. I was looking at this. And so again, Azure, if you have not looked at Azure Cognitive Services, you got to look at this stuff. It is so easy. Like you basically just put Python on your little Raspberry Pi, connect it up to their thing, and then in real time, it can transcribe all the words that it's hearing and then trigger events based off of the words that it's hearing. That's amazing. And it's all easy. It's all like, doesn't take that long to set up. So anyways, we're probably going to do a class on that maybe next week or the week after. So think about signing up for the meetup. And so with that, that's about all I got. So I'm gonna try to get over the cold turkey here. I don't know. Maybe I gotta start smoking. in order to get over my YouTube addiction, I've gotta start smoking or something like that. Well, the easiest way to get over my social media addiction was I started sniffing crack. Yeah, once I started sniffing crack, YouTube just wasn't as important anymore. Oh, it's kind of sad but true. Anyways, I'm going to go before I get canceled. So as always, I enjoyed doing this particular video, and I hope to see you hopefully here in Asheville, North Carolina someday.